G'day battlers, and today we're going to be continuing on with our deep dive into the Sunrise Cup meta by looking into the flying type. So if you haven't already seen part 1, which is the meta simplified video, you can click up there for the playlist that includes all of the meta videos in order, which for now is just these two, but if you're watching this at a later time, then there may be more in that playlist. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about some of the top flying types, namely Altaria, Skarmory and Pelipper, breaking down their matchups against the meta to compare what they can and can't do to help you build your team. Basically, we're kind of going full Hero Vange mode because, I mean, if he's not doing it, then someone has to, or else I am not going to understand this meta. So first of all, I just want to say that I have decided to not cover Mantine in this video, just because it's such a complex Pokemon with all sorts of shield baits and attack debuffs needed for victories, so we'll kind of leave that for a separate deep dive in another day. And also there's other flying types like Zapdos, Articuno and Noctowl that are like decent in this cup, but today we're just going to be focusing on the big three. And just like we did in the Catacomb Cup last season, we're going to be going through and grouping them by the groups they were in the infographic. But first, just to kind of explain how this is going to work, the green circles mean that the flyer on the left hand side is going to win that matchup, the red circles mean that the flyer is going to lose that matchup, and the yellow circle means that there's some IVs going on, there's some different shielding going on, and we'll talk about the matchup kind of in more detail as we go through. So on this first one, that is the diagonal lines like blacked out because they are just the mirror matches. You'll play them out how you play them out. If you can land moves first, that'd be pretty good. So first of all, you're probably seeing, yeah, Pelipper does not have good flying coverage here. The other two both have a green against Pelipper and then a yellow against each other. So we'll start talking about that of Skarmory versus Altaria match. And actually, I should also mention that this Skarmory is a Brave Bird Skarmory, so Sky Attack Brave Bird. I seem to with Flash Cannon, and there are a couple of matchups in the cup that you're going to want Brave Bird for that make it kind of superior in this cup. We'll get to that as we hit those matchups. But for now, against Altaria, Skarmory wins in the 0 and 1 shield. In the 1 shield, Skarmory does want to land that Brave Bird for a healthier win. It can opt to go straight Sky Attacked, but there's some risk involved because Altaria would be going down for the Sky Attack of its own, so with the slightest bit of lag, Altaria could win that 1 shield if you go straight Sky Attack. And then Altaria wins the 2 shield, but that's also a close one because Skarmory's only 1 quick move away from getting the finishing Sky Attack off, so it's a bit of a risk no matter how you play it. And actually, yeah, IVs can come into play here as well. A high attack Altaria will always lose to Skarmory in the 2 shield, so if you're bringing Altaria, make sure it's a higher rank one, so like a high defense, high HP Altaria, and you actually really do want it to be a high rank one, because there's one other way that Skarmory can come out on top in the 2 shield, and that's if it's an attack weighted Skarmory. So versus the PV poke like standard Altaria, which is like about rank 500 I think, attack weighted Skarmory still beats it in the 2 shield, so both the top rank and the maximized defense Altaria both still win in the 2 shield, so you might want the high defense and HP Altarias, and you might want the high attack Skarmory. There's sort of a reason that you wouldn't want that later on, so just keep in mind that if you do have a high attack Skarmory, you are going to be able to win that 2 shield matchup against Altaria, so that's good to know. And it's kind of why I'm kind of considering it to be a win in Skarmory's favour, just because Skarmory is basically winning the 0 and 1 shield for the most part, and then also kind of has the 2 shield. So I was going to colour in that circle green for Skarmory, but I figured yellow is a more genuine colouring. But then against Pelipper, both Altaria and Skarmory are winning. Skarmory hard wins in the 0 and 1 shields, but in the 2 shields, because Weather Ball is faster than Sky Attack, the 2 shield is kind of close against Skarmory, but Skarmory still does end up coming out on top. And then Altaria vs Pelipper, it's a pretty easy win for Altaria straight Sky Attack, all shields. If Pelipper lands the Hurricane in the 1 shield, it's kind of close, but it's still Altaria's win. So yeah, Pelipper doesn't really do great against the flying types, and then Skarmory and Altaria both have those wins against Pelipper, and it's kind of, the ball's kind of in Skarmory's court for the win up against Altaria. Altaria does have some play, it can win some matchups, but for the most part, it is Skarmory's game to win. So with that said, we'll move on to the Antiflies, and we've got Galarian Sunfisk, Abomasnow, Swampert, and Wigglytuff here. If you watch the part 1, there are 3 things that might already stand out based on those 4 picks. First, I've slotted Abomasnow into the Antiflies because he's kind of that icy dude, you know, just kind of seemed like a better spot than with the anti-Antiflies, but yeah, it was just about making a decision, putting him somewhere. Second, there's no Piloswine. That's because the ice types really just aren't that great in this meta, and Articuno is probably the superior ice type outside of Abomasnow, but Abomasnow kind of holding down the ice fort on this one. Lastly, we've also replaced Whiscash with Swampert, just because it's a little more reliable and it has Hydro Cannon, which can actually do something to the flyers as opposed to Mud Bomb. So like, you know, if Whiscash doesn't get the bait and a Mud Bomb goes through unshielded, it's really not going to do much at all. So my Hydro Cannon can do something. Although that is one of the two big reasons that you would want Brave Bird instead of Flash Cannon for the Whiscash matchup. But yeah, we're not really talking about that here, so let's get into the matchup. So Altaria is the most straightforward here. It eludes hard to Stunfisk, all shielding scenarios. If Altaria has 2 shields and Stunfisk has 0, Stunfisk is still winning. So it's the exact same against Wigglytuff actually. No shields can save Altaria from just the charm down from Wigglytuff. Or it does flip for the Altaria versus Swampert, and it's actually Swampert on the chopping block there. Swampert can technically tie when it has the 2 shield advantage, but you know, 2 versus 0 shields, are you really going to get there, and then you're tying. Then there's also a Abomasnow. Straight Weather Ball, Abomasnow is winning against Altaria in almost all shield scenarios, only losing when Abomasnow has no shields and Altaria has at least 1. So these are the Antiflies, so you would expect that for the most part the Flies should be losing these matchups. So the fact that Altaria has 3 red circles there, it's not like some big surprise, but obviously you can already see that the other Flies do have a little bit more coverage there. So Skarmory, fearing a little bit better, can actually win against the Stunfisk when it has 2 shields, and Stunfisk has less than 2 shields, but you know, that does also involve throwing back-to-back Brave Birds, which is always a risk. It might not work. They might sneak a charge move in between your 2 Brave Birds, but yeah, Stunfisk is basically winning there. Skarmory does beat Abomasnow pretty handily in the 0 and 2 shields, but remember that Altaria matchup, how you wanted to have a high attack stat Skarmory? Well, this is the flip side of that coin. So attack-weighted Skarmory is actually going to lose the 1 shield by just 1 turn. And it goes down with a Sky Attack rated 2, so there might be a Skarmory IV combination that handles both of the kind of IV matchups that we've gone through, the Skarmory beating Altaria and also beating Abomasnow, but because there's over 4,000 possible IV combinations and I'm not able to give you like a range of this is where you want to be, I'll just recommend checking your individual Skarmory IVs using PvPoke against these matchups to kind of see how you square up. You can check your IVs by changing these numbers in here on the battle screen, but moving on to Swampert, Skarmory can win if it has a shield advantage, but Swampert is generally winning the even shields. It's really close in the 0 and 1 shields, and Skarmory tends to go down with the Sky Attack charged up and ready to go. So the lesson is basically, do not swap Swampert into Skarmory because Skarmory will come out on top. That is the lesson, but yeah, for the most part, if it's even shields, even leads, whatever, Swampert does generally beat the Skarmory. And that is something you might want to keep in mind if your opponent's only Skarmory counter happens to be Swampert, because you might have a pretty good safe switch on your hands if that is the case. And then Skarmory versus Wigglytuff. Skarmory has Steel type. Wigglytuff just really can't touch it with the charm, so Skarmory isn't some like anti-flying slayer, but it does have some level of play against everything here, so certainly a 1-up on Altaria. And then Pelipper, it has a bit of play too, and against Stunfisk it's a little insane because it wins all even shield scenarios by 1 turn. Stunfisk and Pelipper literally get to their charge moves at the exact same time consistently, so if you lag the slightest bit, you are going to lose that matchup. Pelipper does have the higher attack stat, so it will get charge move priority, again, assuming the game is working properly. So if everything works, which I cannot emphasize enough, if the game works, Pelipper will always win unless there are some like snuck in fast moves kind of details. But against Abomasnow, Hurricane is a 1-hit KO, so if you can land the Hurricane, you've won. Without Hurricane though, it still wins the 2 shield by exactly 1 turn, and then it loses the 1 shield by 3 turns. So it's kind of a game of land the Hurricane against Abomasnow, but you can play out of some of the matchups without the risk. A high attack Pelipper is able to come out on top in the 1 shield because it does an extra 1 damage with each quick move. So that's definitely worth keeping in mind. Maybe you want a high attack Pelipper, but really anything could happen in that matchup. So Swampert is way easier. You just win straight Weather Ball in all shielding scenarios except for the 0-1 and the 0-2. Up against Wiggles, it's straight Charm Town. As long as Wigglytuff has 1 shield, Pelipper's going down. Although in the 0 shield, double Weather Ball does take it out, so, you know, that's something. So overall, again, these are the matches that are supposed to lose, but Skarmory kind of seems to have the most play for, like, the most anti-flyers, with Pelipper having all sorts of, like, 1-turn shenanigans going on, and Altaria just melting to most of them except for Swampert. So moving on to the last grouping of the infographic, the anti-flyers, we've got Vigoroth, Obstagoon, and Ferrothorn here. Altaria, again, it's beating Vigoroth in the 0 and 1 shield, but not by massive margins. It's certainly taking, like, a lot of health loss, but it does come out on top. Except Vigoroth is actually able to take out the 2 shield, but Altaria literally only needs 2 more Dragon Breaths to get to a Sky Attack, so I know that Vigoroth is a big safe swap in this cup, but don't swap it into Altaria, because then Altaria will come out on top, no matter how many shields you burn. And then Altaria is kind of just stomping on Obstagoon in all even shields, and it's also beating Ferrothorn no matter what day of the week it is. But Skarmory doesn't actually have as easy of a time here. While it does beat Vigoroth in the 0 and 1 shields, again, Vigoroth is coming out on top in the 2 shields by exactly 1 turn. Vigoroth is really just clutching these like ideal world sim matchups. Against Obstagoon though, Skarmory does have the 0 shield lockdown, and then it's actually going to lose the 1 and 2 shields again by 1 turn with a Brave Bird ready to fire in the 1 shield and a Sky Attack ready to fire in the 2 shield. And those are the 2 moves that you need to KO in those matchups. In the 1 shield, a Sky Attack wouldn't quite be enough because you haven't done as many quick moves. But so yeah, if you land the Brave Bird, it would be nice, but you are going to lose that by 1 turn unless there's kind of lag shenanigans which can come up. And then Ferrothorn is actually the other one of those 2 matchups that are the reason that you want to have Brave Bird on your Skarmory. Without Brave Bird, you lose to Ferrothorn because of that Thunder, but with Brave Bird, if you can land it, you can take it out in all even shield scenarios. But home stretch here, talking about Pelipper, and then we'll recap the whole thing. Against Vigoroth, Pelipper wins everything, but in the 0 and 1 shield, Vigoroth is 1 to 3 turns away from the KO Body Slam. So this is a case where Vigoroth is a really good safe swap. If a Pelipper swaps in late to your Vigoroth, Vigoroth is going to win that. So don't switch a Pelipper into a Vigoroth. One of the lessons to learn here, Pelipper isn't a great switch in Vigoroth counter. So maybe not a great Vigoroth counter overall, just really good if you do catch that lead. And in the exact same scenario, Obstagoon only needs a little bit of energy to overcome that Pelipper matchup, and unfortunately for Pelipper, it's a hard loss to Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn can even go straight Thunder for the win, although in all of the even shield scenarios, Pelipper will go down with the Hurricane ready if Ferrothorn is going straight Thunder, which will KO the Ferrothorn. So it's kind of Ferrothorn's game to play. If you're the Pelipper though, maybe try and sneak in a Hurricane through, see what happens. But yeah, as far as the anti-Antiflies go, it's all surprisingly close across the board. Altaria definitely seems to have the best time overall, and then Pelipper has more like hard wins, hard losses, whereas Skarmory is more of a across the board. So to recap, going over the flyers, Skarmory and Altaria are both doing okay. Skarmory versus Altaria is a bit iffy, but Skarmory seems to have the overall best anti-flyer role. Pelipper just does not stand up against the flyers at all. Up against the anti-flyers, Altaria is pretty much losing to all of them except for Swampert. Skarmory does a little bit better by beating both Abomasnow and Wigglytuff, and Pelipper seems to do the best there with the Galarian Stunfisk, Abomasnow and Swampert under its belt, with Wigglytuff being the loss there. And finally, against the anti-flyers, Skarmory isn't doing so hot. Altaria does have pretty good time against most of it, and then Pelipper doesn't like the Ferrothorn and is okay against the other 2 fighters. So Skarmory seems to be the best generalist out of these 3 flyers across like all 3 groups. Altaria is a bit more of a hard loss, hard win kind of guy, and Pelipper is just, again, all sorts of 1 turn shenanigans. Can beat this if there's a little bit of lag, can lose to this if there's a little bit of lag. So Pelipper does have that better coverage against the anti-flyers, so you might want to maybe in building a team have that Skarmory paired up with Pelipper to cover that sort of, cover more of the bases, for example. Have some play against Galarian Stunfisk, have some play against the Swampert. But yeah, overall, that is part 2 of the Sunrise Cup Meta Simplified infographic. So I am planning on going over the other groupings and then also Mantine. Please do give me some feedback in the comments below. Let me know kind of what you thought of this video. Let me know if I was like unclear on some stuff, if I kind of rushed through things too fast, if you wanted me to maybe break it up into even more videos, if it was too short, if there wasn't enough in this video. I do think it was fairly dense with stuff, but please do let me know, and also let me know if the graphics are too confusing or whatnot, if there's some more clarity I could throw into the graphics, and yeah, I really do appreciate that feedback, and keep an eye on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for those future parts in this series. We will be going deeper into this Sunrise Cup meta. But yeah, with all that said, thank you so much for watching, especially this far into the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Thank you to our patrons, Melissam9458, brajSF, -Ben10, Not Running Human, Yahwertle, SqeakyNL, and charizardyong for supporting the channel, because I seriously do appreciate that as well. And thank you to Sadie Poo for making my Twitch emote, and to Oscalicious for the sub, and Rady for forwarding my ears. I'm going to leave that for the 5 gifted subs. And yeah, I'll see you in the next Sunrise Cup video.